I'm going to get into a quite routinely discussed topic that has always frustrated and fascinated me: the perception that matchmaker systems in games are fundamentally broken from one's own experience, which can be summed up as matchmaker bad because I lose games, or the quality of my games this season is bad. I'll mainly be relating talking points to Overwatch since that's my main game. Matchmaking systems in online games are designed to match players and teams of similar skill to ensure fair and balanced gameplay. They consider a variety of factors to optimize the experience of everyone in the server. I'll quickly run through some factors that the system can consider. So skill rating, that's ELO or MMR, your latency to the server, queue types, so that's like solo, duo, or teams, your rank preference, so like tank, DPS, support, time in the queue, and avoided players. There are some, but probably not all of the factors that a matchmaker considers. Obviously, I don't work for the matchmaking team on Overwatch or any game, so I'm unable to tell you exactly what is inputted into the system that it takes into account, but these to me are the most obvious ones. The system would give different priorities for each of those factors. For example, the role would be a static priority, meaning it can't change unless you're queued up for multiple roles, of course. The same would be said for your pinned avoided players, making sure you never actually match with them. That leaves the four other factors, so skill rating, ping, time in queue, and queue type. Skill rating would be the highest priority, with the three others below it. The system would then try and cast a small net to try and find you a game, its highest priority being a close skill rating. It would also be taking into account the ping, time in queue, and queue type. As the time in queue increases, it becomes more of a priority than, say, grouping type or ping, since it doesn't want you to be waiting around. So let's say after a few minutes, the system would then enlarge the net for your skill rating, since the time in queue is increased in priority. This, for the average player, someone playing in the center of a bell curve of rank, won't really be noticeable, so that's like gold, plat, since the population of the player base is quite high there. Going to either extreme ends, however, so top 500 or very low bronze, is where the matchmaker gets a little bit more complicated, since the player populations are smaller, hence why most top players have higher queue times. Let's also mention the player factors, things that the matchmaker system can't take into account. One of the most obvious factors to me is the meta. The systems cannot track the meta within any game, it's far too complicated and ever changing. Different hero preferences or players with very narrow hero pools, one tricks for example, also can't really be factored into a search. An example would be a player that is very good on a single hero, let's say Brig, and it's a Brig meta. They will climb the ranks because it's a strong pick and they are strong at that hero. Then suddenly the meta shifts and Brig becomes a very bad pick. The system does not take the meta shift and the player's hero pool into account and will still be placing the Brig player higher than they should be, to which they will eventually start losing rating because they are losing on an unoptimal pick. The same logic can also be applied to one tricks or OTPs. If you are only ever playing a single hero, you aren't playing optimally. So when the meta does roll around and that hero isn't good, you will lose rating. This isn't bad matchmaking, this is the player's inability to adapt, and the player is at fault. Let's also continue with the thread of problems that lie with the player. One big thing that I am sure most of you are familiar with, it's tilting. Playing worse because you feel like you're underperforming, or a more common idea is that your teammates are the issue within the game, causing you to tilt. There are a few scientific papers actually on the matter. Although tilt is nothing new, it's been seen in poker for quite some time. It's only now being looked at in scientific literature. I'll link the papers I'm going to discuss down below. But a paper I did find and read through was called Understanding Tilt in Esports, a study on young League of Legends players. Found that the highest tilt triggers are actually teammates, totaling 36% of responses. The second being a general other players, which could be routed around to about 58% of people blaming other people in the server rather than themselves. And interestingly, only 19% of players surveyed reported frustration and disappointment with themselves, which caused them to tilt. This could be easily extrapolated on and see why players point to the matchmaking system as the one to blame for their loss. They also look into tilt responses and note that players demonstrated erratic behaviors when tilted. So a player might be more verbal or stop communicating completely, and they will also play differently, often more poorly. I also looked at another study that went deeper and looked into common traits of players that tilt. The title being Tilt in Esports, Understanding the Phenomenon in New Digital Contexts. The highest frequency trait within players that tilt was emotion regulation. Players who can't regulate their emotions are now more likely to tilt. The second being experience. Players with less experience are more susceptible to tilt. While these traits aren't too important to the topic at hand, I did find them quite interesting. Tilt is something that the matchmaker also doesn't take into account. So this could lead the matchmaker matching 5 players that are already tilting and would probably result in a quick loss. At the end of the day, everybody wants to see progression in their rank. Everybody wants to win more than they lose. But the matchmaking system, this isn't players, the matchmaking system itself, overall can't have a higher than 50% win rate without the use of bots. Most people are around the 50% mark. And if you're good and deserve to climb, you will. But if you aren't, you will fall. Blaming a matchmaking algorithm on one's own failures is a little insane. And outliers, although they do happen, they're a lot less common than you think. Going on tilt will hurt your performance and send you into a negative spiral that can realistically only be broken by taking a break. And if the system is broken because you're on a losing streak, then surely it's broken if you're also on a winning streak. If you have reached the point that you're insistent on blaming the matchmaking system, you're already far too deep into tilt, my guy. The propagation of that negative mindset just leads to losing more games. I hope you enjoyed this little video. I just wanted to talk about this briefly, and it was interesting diving into a couple of papers that talk about like tilting within video games. I thought it was kind of sick. I see this topic come up a lot from season to season in Overwatch in different circles, people complaining about the matchmaking system when actually it's probably them that are the reason they are losing their games. No one obviously is going to complain about a large win streak, but you will if you lose a bunch and blame the system rather than maybe looking at yourself and maybe I need to pick a better hero or I need to get better to keep up with the ever-inflating player skill that is very apparent in a lot of online video games. Funnily enough, people were 100 times, not 100 times, but you know, close to 5 to 10 times better than they were back in 2018 when Overwatch started and Overwatch League started. You put an old school 2018 team versus current Crazy Raccoon Team Falcons, like they're going to get slaughtered 10 out of 10 times. So if you did enjoy the video, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe. That's about it. Comment down below, etc. See ya.